Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first NOPBC, National Organization of Parents of Blind Children, a proud division of the National Federation of the Blind, our first fabulous Friday. Today we are kicking off Get Caught Reading Month with sharing with you some resources for some free and accessible books for our blind children. Just in case you don't know, in the NFB, National Federation of the Blind, we have a really broad definition of blindness, and we are very welcoming and have that big tent. Anytime that a child's vision inhibits the child from being able to do activities of daily living efficiently, effectively, and in an age-appropriate manner, we would consider that child blind for the purposes of needing non-visual skills. And the kinds of books we're going to be talking about today are available in Braille, audio, and in large print. So they are, again, big tent, welcoming use of the term blind. I'm Carlton Ann Cook Walker. I serve as president of the NOPBC, and joining me as co-host on this call is Melissa Riccobono, and she is a board member of the NOPBC and a whole heck of a lot more. So I'll ask Melissa to introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Melissa Riccobono. I am a board member of the National Organization of Parents of Blind Children. My husband, Mark Riccobono, is also the president of the National Federation of the Blind. So I am the first lady of the National Federation of the Blind. I am blind myself, and I actually use both these services that we're going to talk about. And I have 3 children. 2 of my children are blind, and they also are users of these services. So I'm really excited to be able to share these resources with you from a person who uses them and also from a parent standpoint.
Fabulous. Okay, the 2 resources we're going to talk about most today are Bookshare and National Library Service. I take this time to just mention that there is another service called Learning Ally, and we're not covering it today, and let me just tell you why. Number one, Learning Ally is audio only or predominantly audio books. That's great, but it's not necessarily as accessible in terms of our broad form of accessibility. Audio is a great way to get input of content, but it's not reading, and doesn't allow people to interact with the text. But again, there are times that Learning Ally's books are particularly great, especially people find for technical subjects like science. But the other reason, the bigger reason we're not going to delve into Learning Ally today is that it's, number one, not free for students. It's not free typically. Even during this pandemic time, it's not free for families unless you ask for a fee waiver. So if your child's school has a Learning Ally account, your child can get books through that account. If your child's school can actually get a free Learning Ally account through August, but you can't as the parent. A little bit of a bummer. So you could definitely contact your child's school about that, but it's not something you can do. The only way you can is through a fee waiver application where you have to share your household income and just some kind of personal information that you may or may not be comfortable with. None of that's true for the 2 resources we're concentrating on today. So that's where we are. Melissa,
I would say that especially with Bookshare, they have many more titles than Learning Ally does. So not only are they free, but they're a little bit better in that way. So
absolutely. And what a beautiful segue to Bookshare.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Bookshare is a service that provides accessible books to qualifying individuals. We'll talk about that qualification in a second. These are a wide range of titles. They can be early childhood books. They can be early chapter books. They also are novels, and it even include textbooks in some ways, or to some degree. We'll talk about that in a second. But just wide range of topics: science fiction, and just lots of different choices in between. As of this morning, Bookshare reported that it offered 849,864 titles from which to choose. Stunning number. I consider Bookshare some akin to a library that our children can actually get books from that are useful to them. So, boom. With regard to who can join, what does that qualifying individual thing mean? Okay. What it means is that a person has to have a visual impairment, which includes blindness, a learning disability that affects reading, or another physical disability that causes what's called print disability. In other words, if a person cannot turn pages, that would be a print disability. And in order to join Bookshare, an individual must be certified as having that disability, or must either in your Bookshare application or in an application to another entity like National Library Service, then you can get Bookshare easily. This sounds pretty darn good. More than 800,000 titles. How much does it cost? Well, it's pretty darn reasonably priced. In fact, for students, K through 12, and post-secondary students, and rehabilitation students, it's free in the U.S. These are U.S. students. This is because the Office of Special Education Programs within the United States Department of Education has given Bookshare a grant, and that grant pays for the students. So it's completely free for them. If a person's no longer a student, then it's a $50 per year annual fee. And that's less than $1 a month. It's a fee, but it's a pretty darn low fee. Melissa, did you want to jump in?
I will talk about, it's all of the things that Carlton has said has been wonderful. Bookshare is definitely gotten a lot better in the years that it's been in existence. When Bookshare first started, it was completely, it was a company, but the books that they got were all submitted by volunteers who scanned the books, and then people that would look at the books, make sure that they were at least somewhat of a good quality scan, and then put them up on Bookshare. Now, publishers actually have deals with Bookshare. And so a lot of the bestsellers, a lot of different books that are very popular books, Bookshare gets them very quickly. And they're also files directly from the publisher. So it's kind of interesting. The files that you get, some of them, if you're looking for older books, you might see that maybe it has a rating that says, fair quality or good quality. And you might get some strange errors because they were scanned. My daughter is actually reading a book, an American Girl book from Bookshare on her phone right now with her Braille display. And I'm following along in a hard copy Braille book. And there are a few errors in there, which doesn't make the reading experience perfect, but for the most part, it's all completely readable text. And since we're lucky enough to have the Braille copy as well, we're not really running into problems because I can say, oh, that's supposed to be this word. So just know that it is a fantastic service. It is free for students. I would definitely say sign up for it. Otherwise I wouldn't be participating in the seminar, but just be aware that, especially if you're looking at books that are a little bit older, that they might have, they might be scanned copies. And so there may be a few minor errors, or some might be worse than that. I'm sure you can report them, and I'm assuming that people have reported books and that they've gotten out of there and probably have gotten them in a newer, better file format, because it's just getting better and better all the time. So that's the only thing that I would add. Do you want me to go on, Carlton, about how you sign up, or how you?
Let me just add on to what you were adding on to. Do note that my child, also a blind child, has been noticing actually that some of the books, this wealth of new titles, especially when it comes to science and math, are not perfect. Sometimes some Bookshare books have images. Most of the downloads that are not a specific kind of file we'll talk about in a second, called Daisy with images, they just don't even reference the images. And like, you can download Bookshare files as Word files, and they don't even have a reference that there was an image there, that you're missing an image. That's pretty frustrating. Columns can be difficult. Sometimes columns are rendered well. And like Melissa said, this is from the publisher. But unfortunately, sometimes the publishers don't format things in as accessible a manner as others do. So when it comes to math and science, Bookshare book is absolutely better than nothing, and it's a good starting point, but it is not necessarily the ending point. And if you have a student in K through 12 who has an IEP, for instance, you would definitely want to have a professionally transcribed textbook, especially again in math and science areas. I think also social studies, because frankly, they're graphs and charts and such. So that is really important. And as we're talking about this, even in English, it is important to have hard copy Braille too, because even a refreshable Braille display, you can't just count down 2 paragraphs on page 49, the second paragraph, when maybe you're reading in class or something. The hard copy Braille is really important also for text features like an index, a easily findable index or something. It's not as, refreshable Braille is great, but hard copy Braille is great too. And refreshable Braille only gives you 1 line at a time. Unlike print, I can look at an e-document on print, but I can see more than 1 line at a time. I can't do that with a refreshable Braille display. I can do that with a hard copy Braille page. So hard copy Braille still has a big, big place. But again, Bookshare it's not just better than nothing. It's good, but it's not the be all end all.
That's right. And that's, I guess, what we want to just, that's kind of why I was saying, and especially at these times when just getting any books in the hands of your eager readers or your not so eager readers is really important, because they really do need to be reading. That's really the best way. And I keep telling both my girls are dual media learners, so they read print and Braille. And both of them are kind of saying, but I'm slow at Braille. And their dad and I keep saying, but the best way to get better is to practice. And so finding those really motivating books right away that they can download and just have access to, allowing them to search for books themselves, all of those things are so important. And that's really why we're bringing this to you. And Bookshare also does have, if you happen to be lucky enough to have a Braille embosser, you can actually emboss the Bookshare files, some of them, right at your own home. So you can have that hard copy Braille. So it does kind of give you the ability to do the best of both worlds. So that's all that I'll say about that part. And I'm sure that Carlton's going to move on now to how do you get this wonderful service?
Oh, okay. Yeah, you want me to?
Or I can, if you want to, either way.
No, it's fine. I just want to, if you were just doing, if your student is a college student or a rehab student, or if you are a college student or rehab student, you can do Bookshare, an individual membership all by yourself. Life is happy. For K through 12 students, they actually have more choices, but it makes it a teeny little bit more complicated. Every student, K through 12, rehab, college, post-secondary, whatever post-secondary course, has the right to an individual Bookshare account. That means a Bookshare account that has their own email, their own password, and that they can download what they want when they want. To be sure, Bookshare has an automatic lock on certain titles for those that are not yet 18 years old, so you don't have to worry about that they get anything they want. There are controls for minors. But K through 12 students, and to a certain extent others, but it's mainly important for K through 12, there's something called an institutional account. In other words, your school or school district can have an account for your child, for that K through 12 student. That's a good thing, because there are some special files. They're called NIMAC files, and they refer to certain textbooks that are only available to students in K through 12 through a federal program, NIMAC, NIMAS, and only school institutions can download them. So no individual, any individual account can download them, no matter what individual account you have. So but the institutional account can, and that's great. But if the student only has an institutional account, he or she can't download books independently, like Melissa was talking about, and say, oh, my friend was just talking about the Call of the Wild. I want to download it. Well, you have to call up your teacher and say, hey, would you do this? And it's great if they can just do it themselves. When you have that energy, you want to keep going with that energy. So students need to have both, the institutional and the individual. One's not better than the other. They're both really necessary. And if you already have an institutional account, it's a fairly easy way to just add on an individual account. If you don't, that's okay too, because there's a very easy application process for Bookshare. And from what I understand, Bookshare is doing a really good job of adding people in through this pandemic. I'm guessing they have people work from home, and the documents ideally are electronic, so we can share them quickly and safely. Now, you will need a certifying authority, and we can talk about that later, but it's not that big a deal. We have resource for you to do that. So it really can be easy. There's no application fee for students or anything. So it's worth a shot. And then we'll talk about later how you can download the different kinds of formats. Melissa and I've referred to a couple of them, but there are a lot of different formats. There are a lot of ways to read the books. So it's worth a shot.
Yes, it definitely is. And I would say too, that as far as being certified, I'm guessing if your child has an institutional membership already, you might check with your school, because it makes it easier. And I would assume that they might not need that certifying authority anymore because they already had it through their school.
Right. Like I said, if a child that already has an institutional account, and it's in a document we'll be sharing at the end of this webinar, that they even have an instructional video. We have the instructions in the document. It's really easy. You just kind of do an add-on to that institutional login, so you don't need anything else. But if your child doesn't have that, or if your child doesn't already have a Bookshare login, we can help you out too with an individual membership.
Definitely.
Application.
Absolutely. So should we go a little bit into how to read the books?
Yes.
Or do you want to do the different formats first?
Well, yeah, I can talk about the different formats. There's an EPUB format. There's DAISY, and there's DAISY with and without images. And they can be read by different types of, each of these can be read by different types of tools, hardware and or software. We also have BRF, Melissa referenced that. That's embossable, ready for a hard copy print embosser, but it's also ready for refreshable braille displays. That's kind of cool. There are also MP3s. So obviously that's just audio, but that is one format. There is DAISY audio, which is similar to MP3. I'm sure the techie people know the difference. I don't, but they're both audio only. And then it's fairly new, they have Word. That I like, actually. As a teacher of blind students, I'm also, in addition to parent of blind child, I'm a teacher of blind students. And I do like Word for some things. And Word also allows me, you see, with the Word one, what I can do is I can go in, get a Word, and then I can download the same title in a DAISY with images. So you say, why, Carlton, why would you want to download the same book twice? Let me tell you. I can take those images from the DAISY with images, paste them into the Word file, and add what we call alt text, a description of that graphic. So now I've made a more accessible document for my student. And I know what the alt text is. I know it's good alt text. I know there is alt text. I can clean up if there are any column issues. So it is nice for me to be able to do that. And some are more navigable than others. Navigation's really important. My blind child has complained about some navigation in some of the more recent textbooks, especially. So I can add navigation in the Word document. Now, there are other people who are more techie who can do EPUBs and DAISYs the same kind of way. I'm a Word kind of girl. So those are the formats. And each of those, like I said, has different ways of reading it. Bookshare has its own way of reading it. It's called Bookshare Web Reader. It's free once you search for a book. Many of them are available with their Bookshare Web Reader. Biggest negative, well, Bookshare Web Reader is definitely geared toward visual readers, but it can be read. I don't know how well it does for refreshable braille. I just haven't tried it because it has a big negative, a big drawback that I haven't bothered. You must be online. You can't, when you open the book and you're online, fabulous. If you get offline while you're in the middle of the book, stops being accessible completely. You can't do anything in the book. It dies. So not everybody has internet. Not everybody has stable internet. So I don't really use the Bookshare Web Reader much, but it's an option. Now, Melissa, do you want to talk about some different ways to read some of the others, and I'll just fill in?
Sure, definitely. So the ones that I really prefer, and just going back to Daisy Audio for a minute, I think the difference is I believe that Daisy Audio actually has navigation built into it. So if you're using a player, I'm guessing like a National Library Service player or a Victor Reader Stream or some other players, that you can actually navigate by headings or chapters or things like that. That's what I'm guessing the Daisy Audio is, just knowing what Daisy is. I could be wrong, but that's my guess.
That's what, in their description, it does talk about Victor Reader Streams and Read to Go apps. So I think you're right.
Yeah, right. So that's probably what it is. And actually, that's funny. I was going to talk about Victor Reader Stream and also about Voice Stream Reader and the Read to Go app. So Victor Reader Stream is nice, or the National Library Service, which we'll talk about in a minute. But if your child is already a National Library Service Library for the Blind member and they have a free book player, you can load, you should be able to load, I believe, Daisy audio files onto a thumb drive, and you could read in audio on that player. Victor Reader Stream is the same thing. You can actually search and download, but again, it's all audio. And audio is great. But as Carlton points out, it's not how you're going to get reading fast. And again, this is going to be synthesized speech. So it's not going to be as enjoyable to listen to. I mean, certainly if it's a book that you really, really want to read, and you want to read in the car or something where you can't have a braille display because the battery died or something crazy, it's good and you can do it that way. The way that I generally read Bookshare books is on my phone. I really like the Voice Stream Reader app. It is a really nice app that has the ability to be integrated with Bookshare. And so you can just, when you look, you want to open a new document basically, and it says, where do you want to open this from? Do you want to look in Bookshare? Do you want to look, you can actually hook it to your Dropbox account. I mean, there's all sorts of things that Voice Stream Reader can actually read to you or allow you to read with a refreshable braille display as well. And so it's nice though, because it's connected right to Bookshare. You put your login information in there. It searches Bookshare. You can just download it right from that app, and then you can read right from the app. You can either do it in audio, or if you turn your speech off on your device and just have your braille display, you can read on your braille display. So that's really the app that I like. Read to Go is another Bookshare app. And I like it, except that Voice Stream is free and it does a little bit more. Read to Go, I think, is $19.99. And if I'm remembering right, and maybe they fixed this, but I don't think it has family sharing. So for our household, where my husband's blind, I'm blind, my two daughters are blind, we would have to buy that Read to Go app for all of our different devices. And I mean, I just would rather not do that. We could afford it, I guess, but I would much rather have something that's free. But Read to Go is certainly another option. I believe that some of the Braille note takers actually have a built-in reader for Bookshare. I don't know for sure how true that is anymore. I knew it used to be true with the old Braille notes or the M-Powers and things like that. Now with the Braille Note Touch and the new ones, I think you have to download an app to read it. And there might be one more app that's a Go Read, I think is the other one that maybe is the other name for Read to Go, or maybe it's a more basic version of Read to Go that's free.
Yeah, it's an Android version.
So that's the other one. Oh, that's the Android version. That's right, for Google, for the Google store. So that's like the Braille Note Touch. I personally, my daughter had a Braille Note Touch for a while. I really was much happier once we were able to Bluetooth that to an iDevice, an iPad, an iPhone, iPod. I really did not like how tough it was to get Bookshare. I just found it really kind of cumbersome to get Bookshare files into the Braille Note in a good way that we could use them quickly and easily and search. And so it might just be user error for sure. And now there's a newer version of the Braille Note because she had the older one. So I don't know. And I'm not as familiar with HIM's products. So I don't know for sure what other ones are doing. But any a refreshable Braille display hooked up to a computer or to a tablet or to a phone could do voice stream or Read to Go or Go Read. That would be certainly an option for any of those.
Yeah, I just want to say,
and then of course Braille Victor Reader Stream for audio.
Right. The voice stream reader isn't free though. There is a fee for it, both in app, both in Google Store and in iTunes. It's $10.
Oh, that's interesting. It used to be free, so that's sad. But anyway, it's well worth the cost.
Absolutely,
especially if your child is going to be doing other things as they get older with Dropbox, Word documents. I mean, you can read any type of document. And what I like about Voice Stream is it actually keeps your place. And so I used to get my church bulletin emailed to me. But then if my Braille display turned off because I wasn't reading, then I was always at the top of my email and I had to get back to where the bulletin was. With Voice Stream, I could shut off my Braille display and then I could resume, once the sermon was over or whatever, and I wanted to start back, I was able to resume right there where I left off. So that's the other really nice thing about Voice Stream. It just takes a lot more files and is a really nice app.
Absolutely. I definitely believe that Voice Stream is well worth the $10. And if a family has trouble, perhaps to get some help locally. iTunes cards. A lot of folks give out iTunes cards, so those can be used for Voice Stream Reader, and it is a really powerful and versatile tool. So it definitely is worth learning about and using. Some other things you can do. I think we talked about BRF for refreshable Braille and displays and embossers. Word, like if you did the Word file, you could use Voice Stream Reader for it. You could also use JAWS on a Windows laptop or NVDA, non-visual digital access. JAWS is right now free until June 30th. It is not free after that. It's somewhat expensive. If your child's in school or has a rehab program, that could be part of that. NVDA is at no cost though. Also, you have VoiceOver with your iOS devices, so those could read the Word. But again, so could Voice Stream Reader. So boom. So there are different ways to access these books, and when you're wanting to download a book, you have the choice. Now, not every book has, for instance, DVC with images. A lot don't have images. And that's fine because they take forever to download, but it's okay because you get a lot of images. But you can choose. So you could download in a DAISY and an EPUB and a BRF and in a Word and play with it and see what you like. You have that ability, and you say, oh, but Carlson, this is a free program, or a very inexpensive program if I have my own account. Aren't there limits on downloading books? Well, yeah and no. The default limit is See, I'm a lawyer too. I know it's too many things. So as a teacher, I like to teach, but as a lawyer, I'm always yes, no, yes, no. And there is a limit, and that limit is 100 books per 30-day period. So today's May 1st. This isn't a good example. If on May 29th you download one book, then for the next 30 days you have 100 books. So Carlton, you say there's no limit. You say yes, there's a limit. That's the limit. How is it no? Because Bookshare is really, really flexible. If you contact them and say, I've reached my 100 book limit, I'd like to be able to do more. My child has done this more than once because we tend to go on a tear and want to download books. I don't do it with Bookshare, she does. But contacting Bookshare by phone, I would recommend their online form if you can do it. Phone is certainly possible too. And ask, they've always upped her limit. There's never, ever, ever been a problem with it. So, and they have that right on their website. Yeah, just contact us and we'll remove the limit for that 30 days. So while there's a default limit, if you need them because somebody wants to download a whole big series, go for it. And and don't worry about downloading the same text in multiple formats because you can do it. That limit can be erased.
So I think we've covered everything with Bookshare now. And certainly we will have a document on our website after this meeting is over, which will answer, go over all the details that we've talked with you about and answer your questions. And we really hope that you take advantage of Bookshare. Let's move on now to the National Library Service for the Blind and Print Disabled. That's actually a new name for it, at least in some states. I think on a national level, I think the name change is coming. It used to be the Blind and Physically Handicapped. Obviously, Physically Handicapped is pretty outdated. And so they are in the process of changing it to the Blind and Print Disabled. National Library Service is wonderful. It is definitely free for anyone in the United States that has, once again, blindness, reading disability, or a physical disability, print disability, where they can't turn pages or hold a book or things like that. So there are many different types of materials that you can get from the library. Many states have a local branch of the Library for the Blind and Print Disabled. And states that don't, you are definitely shuttled into some kind of a regional library. So anybody in the country has access to this service. When I was a kid, I grew up in Wisconsin. We had a branch, and for a long time, they sent out all materials. And then after a while, they did not send out Braille materials anymore. They only sent out audio materials. But our regional library was in Illinois. So I was still able to get Braille books from Illinois. And then eventually became Utah, which was very sad, but that's a whole other story. Very sad because I had to wait longer to get books, but we'll talk about that in a second. They do have Braille books. They have print and Braille books, which are really nice for beginning readers or for blind parents to read to young children. They're the Braille on a page, and then the print and the pictures on another page, so you can actually read along with a child, or a child can read in Braille but still see pictures. They're really nice books. There's also Braille only. There is Braille music, actually quite an extensive collection of Braille music, mostly classical music, but there are some other types of popular music as well. There are Braille magazines. For kids, I believe they have Spider in Braille. I think they might also have Cricket in Braille. I know they have some in audio as well. And that's why the only reason I'm hesitating, because I can't remember what are in Braille and what are in audio. And they may have both. And in some ways, it might be nice to get both. A really good way to build up speed is to have a child be reading along with somebody who's reading something out loud to them. And so the library will allow you to get the Braille magazine, but you can also download an audio version, and that would be a really nice way to build up speed for your child. But there's also other magazines. There's computer magazines and parenting magazines and all sorts of things, poetry magazines. And so, you know, basically any age, you're going to have a magazine, and a wide variety of interests, you're going to have a magazine for your child to enjoy, even if your child is older. There also are audiobooks and audio magazines, and everything that the National Library Service produces, you can get in a couple different ways. You can get hard copy Braille mailed to your house free of charge. So there's something called Free Matter for the Blind, and the books you can request them from your library. They come to your house free. When I was a kid, it was always a huge deal to get the packages in the mail that had books. I mean, that was like Christmas coming whenever I got a book or a magazine. And what kid doesn't like getting something in the mail? So certainly that might be a fun thing. Oh, they also have sports schedules. If sports ever will resume, there are baseball, football, basketball, hockey. I was a huge baseball fan as a kid, still am. And so I loved getting the schedule and knowing when my Milwaukee Brewers were playing next, who they were playing, whether they were playing home or away. That could be a really motivating thing for some child that really likes sports like I did. And that comes in the mail, and that's free of charge. You can get audiobooks in the mail. When you get the audiobooks, they will be a special file format, because these books are made specifically for people with print disabilities or blindness or visual impairment of some kind. And so the government wants to make sure that they're protected and that not just anybody can have access to them and play the books. And so you will receive, again, free of charge, an audiobook player in the mail. And so the books will come on little cartridges, and you can get books and they can be played. They're human voice narrators. They're very good quality. They read with a lot of expression. It's a very nice collection of audiobooks. The good news is you don't have to wait anymore for the books to come. If you want to have it mailed to you and you want that kind of little surprise, that's great. You don't have to wait anymore. There is something called BARD, Braille and Audio Reading Download, and you can download either audiobooks to be read on a special player that they'll send you, or a Victor Reader Stream if you have one of those. And you can download it either right on the Victor Reader Stream itself, or you can download it through the computer. They have a very nice, very easy to use piece of software that you can download that allows you to do that. And you can also download Braille files to be read on a Braille display. And so the only interesting thing is you do have to switch your Braille display. Generally, it is the letter G with the space bar that switches it between the different grades of Braille for the output. And for whatever reason, you have to switch it to 8-dot output. And once you do that, it's good to go. You can read the book. Otherwise, it's going to just be gibberish. But as long as you remember to do that G chord, you are good. And you can download, again, in Voice Stream Reader, or actually, BARD has a very nice app that you can get on your phone, which is free, either for Android or for Apple. And you can read Braille files right from that app as well, using a Braille display. Or you can read the audio files right from the app. There's like a really nice little player that will pop up, and you have a sleep timer, and you can rewind and fast forward and speed up the voice. And it's a really usable, really nice app. So National Library Service is a great, great service. I have been a part of it since I was a very small child. I'm excited that my children are a part of it, and that really having those Braille books, because especially when I grew up, there was so few books in Braille, but having access to that and having them be able to come free to my house is really what made me a reader, plus a really good librarian that picked books that I really enjoyed. So that's a little bit about the National Library Service.
Absolutely.
The hard part about the National Library Service is it says by law, Ms. Carlton just informed me today, that you need either a doctor or a social worker to certify you. Bookshare is a lot, I don't want to say more laxed, but more generous, I guess, maybe, with who can certify. And so that could be a barrier, but there's ways to we could talk about that. So maybe we can start that discussion, Carlton.
It is kind of funny because under BARD rules, take a social worker or the superintendent of a school for the blind or a physician, but not a special ed teacher or a teacher of blind students. So a lot of superintendents don't have any experience with blindness. So it's kind of amusing. And there are a lot of social workers who have no experience with blindness. So that's just a little odd. And what's really odd to me is for people with other print disabilities, people with a reading disability, only a physician can certify it.
Wow.
It's bizarre. It must be some old legislation. I don't know. Bookshare is way more open, and not in a bad way. It just recognizes what's going on. Bookshare allows a physician, a librarian, which is actually pretty open, I think, any special ed teacher, and specifically does say teachers of blind students, but any special education teacher can certify it for any of the three categories: visual impairment, including blindness, I'm using their words, learning disabilities, or physical disabilities. Any special ed teacher can do any of those categories. There's some things that certain people can do and not do. It's much more open. And right now, like I said, with the online application, I went through BARD today just to check things out, and I couldn't even see the application. You have to fill out a form that says, I want an application. So you have to fill out the form, then I guess they send it to you, and you send it to them. Oh, too much work, too much stress. The document that we have has a section in it where we walk you through the steps to create an individual account if your child does not have one with the school. Now, if your child has one with the school, but you don't have the sign-in, it's the same as not having one. Because the other way, you have to have a sign-in to be able to add on the individual membership. So if your child's teacher has your child on the account, but you don't have a login for that, then it's just the same as not having it, frankly, for the purposes of getting the individual account. So individual account, not hard. 6 steps. Go to Bookshare. The application process is right there. We have a link to a document that actually has there are 4 screens of the application. You can preview it before you even get online, and you can look at those 4 screens in this document. So that's kind of cool. And you say, okay, what are they going to ask me for? Oh, okay. Sometimes it's nice to know. Then you're going to download.
It is.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for Bookshare, if your child already has an account with the National Library Service, that is a shortcut. So your child can be certified. Like that's another way. And so Absolutely. My daughter's certification was very quick because they knew right away, oh, she's with the National Library Service. It took them, I don't know how long, not very long to verify that. And then we were able to get that login. Also, as far as the National Library Service, don't despair. It looks like it's a hard process, and it might be a hard process, but if you have a library for the blind in your state, and if you go to, I believe it's LOC for Library of Congress.gov/NLS, I believe is the website. You should be able to look up where the different libraries are near you. And particularly during this pandemic, I am thinking that there may be some ability to do some of that application over the phone. You might still need to send some kind of a documentation or have somebody get on the phone. But I think particularly at this point, librarians want to get books in the hands of kids that want to read them. And so I would definitely give it a try. I can't promise it's going to work, but I would absolutely give it a try. And I think if they can at all take your word for it, I think they will. I think that's all I'll say about that.
I think Melissa's absolutely right. And if you are concerned about having books in your home, I would be shocked if the libraries are not being very, very, very careful, perhaps isolating the books when they come back. But if you're really, really worried, you can always do the BARD, the online anyway. So
yes.
Don't
yes,
worry.
they are being very careful.
Yes.
I know at least in Maryland, they are, I can't remember what it is, but it's like 3 or 4 days that they're letting the books just sit before they, do anything with them. And I mean, they are being very careful.
Yeah. So
but again, the BARD is really nice because you can do it all online.
Right.
But again, hard copy Braille is awesome. And there's nothing like having a hard copy Braille book in your child's hand. So if that's something that you really want, you can definitely do that, especially if you're comfortable in the library. You can even ask when you're on the phone with them, okay, so during this pandemic, what are you doing to make sure that the books that you're going to send me are safe for my child to touch? And I'm sure they'll be happy to let you know.
Absolutely. I mean, these are professionals who, like Melissa said, want you to read books. So these are good folks.
Yes.
On the third page of the book share application, like the third web frame, there are 4, like I told you, it's proof of disability. And there are 3 ways to prove disability. 1 is a proof of disability form, which we'll talk about in a second. 2 is NLS membership. And for that, you need to have your member name, address, city, state, zip code, email address in your regional provider. And you have to certify that, I'm receiving services from them. If they actually even have a list of the NLS providers on that. And on the document we have, it shows, it has a link to that list. So it can be really easy. Another way is actually a Learning Ally membership. If you already have a Learning Ally membership, that's a way to get, that's a proof of disability, kind of de facto proof of disability for Bookshare. And you have, for that, you have to have the same kind of things, except you have to have your Learning Ally member ID number. So those are 2 ways that are pretty automatic. The third way is Bookshare has an individual proof of disability form. There's 1 page of instruction, and then there's 1 page of just the form. The top half of the form is what you would fill out again. Name, I think the information about the child or the member. And then the bottom part is what's called a competent authority. And that competent authority would be saying, yes, this individual, Joe Schmo, qualifies. And I have whatever my competent authorityness is, that's what it is. Back in March, when a lot of this was going on, I found out a lot of families were having trouble getting in touch with their children's teachers because schools were closed. It's just a whole heck of a lot of mess. I set up a process where you can send your child's most recent IEP or 504 agreement or most recent doctor's report, so I can know that your child is qualifies. And then I'll send you a document back with my signature certifying to your child's Bookshare qualification. I would do that for NLS, but like we said, I can't. Not a physician.
And she is a lawyer, so she wants to be very, very legal about this.
Yeah, well,
which is good. Very good. No, it's very good.
But I'm happy to do that. I think this may not be as necessary now because schools are communicating to their teachers better, so teachers are allowed to communicate to their students better, so it might not be as necessary. But if it is, or if your child is homeschooled or whatever's going on, or maybe you've asked the teacher and it just hasn't gotten on the teacher's priority list quite yet, if you want it happening lickety-split, follow the directions in the document we will be putting online and you'll get it. So, we want to serve you. We want to make it easy. I'm not trying to push anything on you at all, just offering it as a absolutely free service. Take it or leave it. It's completely up to you. So.
Excellent. Well, I think that's covers what we were planning to cover today. Are there any questions or any things that we have missed that people would like to share?
I won't unmute you because you might be doing something you don't want me to unmute for. So I'll ask you to unmute yourself if you want to share.
Yes.
You might be washing
Yes, dishes. If you'd like to share something, please unmute.
Yeah, it's okay.
That's right. Or cooking dinner or.
Right. And so I'm not going to do that to anybody.
Well, hearing none, I really just want to thank everyone for taking some time to be with us today. I hope that this has been helpful. I hope that we were able to answer your questions, and certainly please visit our website, NOPBC.org, and we will have a copy of this recording and a copy of the document. Also, please join us. Our next seminar is actually something I'm extremely excited about because we are a membership organization. We want to be here and helpful to you, and we want to respond to what you want. And so our next event is actually something that we're calling What Do You Want Wednesday? And that will be this coming Wednesday, May 6th at 4 o'clock Eastern Time. And it will be through Zoom, and we'll definitely have an announcement on all of our normal places so that you can join in with us for this. But really what that is just what it sounds like. We want to know what you want. What are topics that you'd like us to cover on some of these fabulous Fridays? What are things that you or your child are really missing right now because it's all now online learning and not learning in school? What things as a parent are you looking for to teach your child different skills or to help them not be bored over the next few weeks when we're all still sheltering in place or, on mostly at home. And so please come to the event with ideas. We will not be talking at you. I mean, certainly we will be happy to give you some resources because there are some fun resources out there, but we really want to hear from you about what you want. And if you cannot join us for that actual meeting, we will definitely have an email address that you can send ideas or thoughts to so that we can definitely include those in our planning for our next sessions.
Absolutely. Thank you all for attending, and I'll do the auctioneer thing. I'm not an auctioneer, just I like to do it. Last call for questions. Going, gone. All right. Thank you very much. And
thank you guys. Have happy reading.
Yes. And look forward to seeing you next week, and take care and stay safe.